Okay, so we can begin now. So the title of our talk for tonight is Catechism and the World Wide Web. And I see some names there. I think na mas competent to talk about the internet, especially si Albert. I think he's the one in charge of communication ng ano to, the Union Bank. So I think he's more competent to talk about this. But of course, I'll share something about what I know about the relationship of catechism and the World Wide Web. Okay, I will begin with what the Evangelii Nunciandi said regarding the use of the communication tools that we have at present. And itong Evangelii Nunciandi was written in 1975, and it talks about evangelization in general, of course. And also, it encourages the use of many different platforms or tools or instruments in order for us to spread the good news. And in Evangelii Nunciandi number 14, it says, evangelization is in fact the grace and vocation proper to the church, her deepest identity. So it means to say, without evangelization, without proclaiming the good news, the church is not being a church, okay? Because the deepest identity of a church is to evangelize. So we are all called to be part of this evangelization mission of Jesus Christ. So she exists in order to evangelize. That is to say, in order to preach and teach and to be the channel of the gift of grace, or to reconcile sinners with God, and to perpetuate Christ's sacrifice in the Mass, which is the memorial of his death and glorious resurrection. So let us break it down. Okay, una, sabi dito, she exists in order to evangelize. So evangelization actually involves many different areas. First, in order to preach and teach. So evangelizing involves preaching and teaching. And as catechists, we are involved in evangelization by teaching, okay? And we also, of course, preach the good news through the through catechesis, through the lessons that we impart on our students or the catechumens, okay? Those who we prepare for the sacraments, okay? So that is one aspect of evangelization. And also, evangelization involves being channel of the gift of grace. So it's not only what we teach or what we preach, but also what we do. Okay? Especially sa pamamagitan ng pagpapamalas ng pagmamahal sa ating kapwa-tao, we also evangelize. So we do not just preach the good news, but we have to be the good news. Okay? So we have to be the channel of gift of grace. And of course, it is meant also to reconcile sinners with God. So yung mga masasabi nating nawawala sa landas, ang role natin in evangelizing is to actually bring these people back to Christ. Kaya nga involve yung catechism sa pag-prepare, for example, for the first communion, and also yung tinatawag nating yung first confession. So we do that in our parish. And also to perpetuate Christ's sacrifice in the Mass. So to lead people to the celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass so that they will really feel the real presence of Christ. So that's part of what we call the evangelizing mission of the church. And of course, yung ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng misa? Misa is the memorial of his death and glorious resurrection. So we have to be mindful that in the Mass, we actually hindi lang siya sa memorial ng kanyang kamatayan, but also of his glorious resurrection. So it's a combination of a feast and also a sacrifice. Kaya hindi po ang intention ng misa ay parang for us to feel that it's Good Friday again. So that's one part of the celebration of the Mass, but it is also a celebration. It is also a feast. That's why it is in the context of a meal. So when we share the body and blood of Christ, that's when we also become the body and blood of Christ. Okay, we become a part of His body. So it is also celebration, not just a memorial of His death. Okay, kaya yun po ang tandaan natin when we evangelize and when we usher people into the celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Okay, kaya there is really reason for us to celebrate, to express our joy in the celebration of the holy sacrifice of the Mass. It is not just Good Friday, but it is also the resurrection day that we celebrate in the celebration of the Mass. Okay, so yun po as far as Evangelii Nunciandi is concerned, which was published in 1975. Okay, and we move on to ano bang ibig sabihin, ano bang requirement for evangelization? First is self-evangelization. Before we can evangelize people, we have to be evangelized first. Sabi nga, di ba, we cannot give what we do not have. So we have to be first evangelized, meaning to say we receive the gospel and also embrace the gospel before we can evangelize others. So that is the first requirement. But also, hindi lang siya yung for us to be evangelized, but it requires a continuous renewal. That kasi we're a work in progress. Okay, hindi pa tayo tapos na project. So we are a work in progress, so that requires continuous renewal on our part and also on the part of the church, on the part of the community, and also on the part of the people that we're helping to become closer to Christ. Okay? It is a continuous renewal. And of course, that requires sharing of faith. You do not just contain it to yourself, but you also share it with others. Sabi nga, di ba sa gospel is in the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay? Kung punong-puno ka kay Kristo, punong-puno ka ng mabuting balita, then you also share that good news that you have in your heart. So hindi pwedeng itatago mo lang sa sarili mo. So every Christian is called to be an evangelizer. Every Christian is called to be part of the evangelizing mission of Christ. So ito po ang tatlong requirements in what we call evangelization. First, self-evangelization. Second po ay continuous renewal. And third, the sharing of faith. Without these three, hindi po buo ang ating hindi natin masabi na integral ang evangelization natin. Okay? So, ano ba yung tinatawag nating new evangelization? I think you have heard already the term new evangelization. Is there something new in the content of what we are going to preach of the gospel? So, according to, of course, sa teaching ng simbahan, it is not a way of proposing new message, because there's only one message, and that the content is the same. That is that Jesus is the fullness of God's revelation. So there's nothing that we add to the gospel of Christ. Everything is already revealed through Jesus Christ. So this is not a new way of proposing new message. Okay, there's no new message being preached when we talk about new evangelization, but rather it is a call to deepen one's faith, to have a renewed confidence in the gospel, and to possess willingness to share the gospel. So ito po ang tinatawag nating new evangelization. It is about renewal. Renewal of our own faith by deepening our own faith, and also our confidence in the gospel. Now, that we truly believe in the gospel, that we are convinced that Jesus Christ is the fullness of God's revelation, and that Jesus Christ already opened the door to salvation for all of us, because He is the door of mercy and He is the door of our salvation. He already transgressed the separation between God and man by being God-man Himself. So it is through His incarnation, mission, also death and resurrection, that He really fully revealed to us who God is, and also He gave us the hope for eternal glory. So it's to possess also the willingness to share the gospel. So hopefully, as we experience Easter, we have a deeper faith, and also a renewed confidence in the gospel, so that we will be able to proclaim Jesus is alive and that truly he is also in us. According to to Pope John Paul II, because he was the first one to actually use the nomenclature new evangelization. New evangelization is not a task reserved for a select few, but it is coming from what we call our baptismal vocation. So new evangelization means that it's not only about the priests or the ministers, the ordained ministers role, but it is the task of everyone. So it is new evangelization because now it is really empowering every single baptized Christian to be part of the evangelizing mission of Christ. And it emanates from our baptismal vocation. Every single one who is baptized is given the mandate to proclaim the good news. Okay? But it is a commitment, according to him, to spread the good news with renewed fervor and vigor. Okay? So ibig sabihin that because we are convinced about the content of the good news, who is Jesus Christ, then we are emboldened. We have inspired, okay? We are inspired to really proclaim the good news in season and out of season. Okay? Insta portune et importune. But of course, merong napakahalagang Vatican II document, which is a decree on the media of social communication. So as early as the Second Vatican Council, meron na pong sinabi regarding our use of media for social communication, for spreading the good news. Okay, and it says about the inherent right of the church, and I quote, to announce the good news of salvation also with the help of media of social communication and to instruct men in their proper use. So yung church is saying that we have this powerful tool which we call media, and we have to make use of that powerful tool in order for us to do our mission of evangelization. So that's part of the available tools that we have, but of course we have to know how to use them properly. Okay, so we have to instruct men in their proper use because it can also be abused. So we have to be very careful in using the available media for social communication or for catechesis. Kailan nagsimula yung paggamit natin ng internet? Okay, because internet is a relatively new reality and a very powerful tool for us to convey the message, to evangelize people. And it's approximately 3 decades ago nang nagsimula yung what we call the confluence of church life and the internet. Has been in existence for approximately 3 decades now. So mga very young, 30 years, okay? Approximately 30 years because it's 3 decades. And the use of internet for religious purposes can be traced back to the 1980s as documented by Reingold. Okay, of course, sinabi dito that at first using mga emails, okay, to transmit messages, and also eventually yung mga chat rooms, and then nagkaroon ng mga bagong mga applications sa internet that we can use as platforms for us to do our mission for evangelization. So as early as the 1980s, the use of internet for religious purposes can already meron na, okay, was already in existence. So, but of course, yung talagang use ng church, especially the Vatican and also the dioceses, we only started using the power of internet or the World Wide Web approximately 3 decades ago. So there's a term coined because of the use of the internet by the church. And it is called the cyber church. It has been defined from a ministry perspective as enabling worship and Christian education, evangelization, and community on the World Wide Web. So whenever we use the World Wide Web or the internet for to enable worship and Christian education and evangelization, we are closer to what we call the cyber church. Okay, cyber because of course yung term na parang it's something that is artificial, something that is happens in the virtual world rather than the actual face-to-face encounter. So we refer to that as the cyber church. And Patrick Dixon, one of the more popular proponents of the concept of cyber church, he has been using this term since his publication of this book, The Cyber Church, Christianity and the Internet, which was published in 1997. So as early as 1997, people were already talking about the reality of cyber church. Okay, and that means using the internet for to enable worship and Christian education, and of course evangelization for the community. There's this research group based in the States, which is called the Barna Research Group, and it reported something about the cyber church in 2001. Okay, and it said, and 100 million Americans make use of the internet for some aspect of religious experiences. So as early as 2001, 100 million Americans already were making use of the internet for the purpose of religious experience. And several religious communities, such as the parishes, religious orders, spiritual communities, and the likes, have adopted the concept of cyber church in various forms and extent. Meaning to say, they use, for example, like chat rooms, or they use Facebook or many other applications in order for them to convey the message of the gospel. For example, yung Family Rosary Crusade, we have the like weekly reflection, Sunday Gospel reflection that is being put out in the internet regularly, and also yung isa sa program pala yung Ask Father, people ask questions and merong mga designated priests to actually respond to those questions, and actually I'm one of them. Okay, so we use the internet for the purpose of religious experiences in many various forms and to various extents as well. And today, nearly 9 in 10 pastors say they believe it is theologically acceptable through the internet. Okay, so that's around 87%. This is up from about 3/4 of pastors in 2000, 78%. And similarly, nearly 9 in 10 pastors today say they think people in their area would find it acceptable for their church to provide faith assistance or religious experiences to people through the internet. And I think ito ay totoo sa ating parokya, sa Christ the King, because we really make use of the internet for many different purposes, especially during the pandemic and even until now. We use, for example, Zoom for our meetings, and we post mga messages, mga reflections, and also commentaries on Facebook and Instagram and other platforms available to us. So compared to only 7 in 10 who would have said so in 2000. So only in a matter of 1 year, there's an increase of people using the internet in the United States for the purpose of what we call the cyber church. And I think here in the Philippines, most especially during the pandemic, tayo ay talagang we made use of the internet for us to continue evangelizing and continue providing religious experiences for people. Okay, I think also yung mga rosary groups and also mga prayer meetings through internet proliferated, especially during the internet. So we did not stop having religious experiences just because of the lockdown. But in fact, we made use of the internet for us to truly experience, being church, okay, even in the midst of the pandemic. So on the part of the church, the Catholic Church, we actually have Pope Francis. Okay, I think it was Pope Benedict XVI who started using also before they call it Twitter, and now it's X. And so from time to time, Pope Francis releases some statements through X, and it's called at Pontifex. And also he uses Instagram. Okay, for him to reach out to people, and it's called at Franciscus. And of course, we can be updated by watching www.romereports.com about what's happening in the Vatican and in the Universal Church. And so our current Pope no doubt exhibits amiability towards the use of social media as manifested by his use of Twitter and Instagram, or the X, okay? Apart from the televised and live streamed activities in the Vatican that we can access through www.romereports.com. So it is a testimony that indeed the Pope supports using social media, using the internet for evangelization purpose. But of course, we have to use it wisely, properly, so that we will not abuse this very powerful tool that God has given to us to reach out to people in our contemporary world. In an encyclical that Pope Francis wrote entitled Lumen Fide in 2013, he said it is the very first encyclical that he wrote. In fact, it's considered to be a continuing what Pope Benedict XVI has already started. And so during his pontificate, he released this encyclical letter on faith entitled Lumen Fide, and he laid down his vision of faith, and I quote, that needs a setting in which it can be witnessed to and communicated, a means which is suitable and proportionate to what is communicated. So he's, in a way, he's saying that whatever available materials that you have, whatever available tools that you have, whatever available instruments that you have, use them in order for you to evangelize and to let people really experience the presence of Christ. So needs a setting in which it can be witnessed to and communicated, a means which is suitable and proportionate to what is communicated. So it also, in a way, saying that we have to make good use of it and not abuse whatever platform or tools available to us. There's the Pontifical Council of Social Communication also released a statement in 2002, and it's entitled "The Church and the Internet." And I quote, it said, although the virtual reality of cyberspace cannot substitute for real interpersonal community, okay, so it means to say it recognizes the fact that, of course, face-to-face encounter is still the preferred, okay, what do you call this, method, okay? It's also the celebration of the Mass with actual people there cannot be replaced by Mass online, okay? That's why our liturgies are very careful in distinguishing the actual sacrament, okay, the celebration of the Mass with actual people celebrating it, as opposed or compared to the online masses. Online masses, according to them, are not sacraments, but they are devotional, okay? So they are not equal. So the church recognizes that the virtual reality cannot substitute, okay, the real interpersonal community. But although it's not a substitute, it says that it can complement them attract people to a fuller experience of the life of faith and enrich religious lives of users. So it is meant to complement, okay, whatever is lacking is complemented by the use of the internet. That's why we have cyber churches which cater, for example, to people who cannot come to church physically, people who are far away, like the migrants. Okay, a lot of the Filipino migrants, overseas Filipinos, actually subscribed to many different channels here in the Philippines during the pandemic and even now. So because they want to feel that they're still part of the Philippines, of what we call the Filipino way of expressing, of celebrating, of or experiencing faith. That's why they subscribe to many different Filipino channels available online. Okay, so it is about complementing, okay, what is lacking. So it also attracts people to fuller experience of the life of faith. So it is meant for so that it is there so that people will crave more and really hope that one day they will be able to participate face to face or on site. Okay, I heard a lot of people who during the pandemic, during the lockdown, they were celebrating with us through our live stream masses here in CTK. And after the lockdown, some of them actually came to CTK to experience physically the celebration of the Mass face to face. And I also heard that a lot of people came to Manila Cathedral because of the two priests there who became like instant celebrities on YouTube. And so they were, kumbaga, encouraged to go to Manila Cathedral and to celebrate Mass there because of what they experience in the internet through YouTube. So it's about enriching religious lives of the users of the internet. So again, it is an affirmation of the good use of the internet. So, but there are also some people who are opposing, okay, the notion of this cyber church, and they say that it's the analog church, okay, as opposed to the cyber church. We have the analog church, and so it's about the real, actual face-to-face contact, okay, interpersonal contact. And they say a book written by Scott McKnight entitled "Analog Church: Why We Need Real People, Places, and Things in the Digital Age." He said, if Jesus is God incarnate, then God chose to reveal himself in analog, not digital. Of course, it is about the incarnation of Christ. And the very purpose of Jesus's incarnation is to really touch base with our human reality. So it is about this incarnate presence of Christ and not digital or virtual. So he said, you can communicate a message in words and send such a message on papers or papyrus, but you can't see the revelation of God except in that one person who is Jesus Christ, okay? The person who lived, who died on a cross, who was raised up, who ascended, and who rules and who will come again. So he said, analog church provides an analog ecclesiology that conforms to the incarnation itself. But I think even the Pope Francis, Inter Mirifica, and also Evangelii Nunciandi, and also that statement, okay, issued by the dicastery on it's does not deny the fact that what is virtual cannot replace what is real. Okay, so they all agree to that because, of course, the very basis of this incarnational evangelization is the incarnation of Christ himself. And also, Cardinal Tagle, in his message on 2021 for the World Mission Sunday, he reminded us that we are corporeal beings, so we need contact. So thus he calls on the church to develop other types of intelligences that will provide alternative to the artificial or virtual intelligence that young people of today have grown accustomed to. So we have to encourage the young people. We have to bring the young people out of that virtual zone so that they will experience also that incarnational presence of Christ and also the incarnational presence of everyone in the church, because it cannot be substituted by what is virtual. Okay, so we have to provide alternative to this artificial or virtual intelligence. So I think the church has this task, okay, to develop, okay, whatever means that we can use or instruments or tools we can use to be an alternative to the artificial or virtual intelligence. Because of course, what is virtual cannot replace the real person-to-person contact. But of course, there is also a positive view. Okay, it's as I have already mentioned earlier, that the church is not totally against the use of the virtual reality or the internet or the World Wide Web. Okay, the church is not against the use of applications available on internet. So it I say that it poses a challenge to the orthodox view of church life, but it also provides a wider avenue for the appreciation of the royal priesthood, which every baptized Christian has received. Because everyone right now is or has access to internet. So everyone can also use the power of internet to evangelize, to share their stories of faith, okay? And people can read them or have access to them and also will be inspired and will also be encouraged to grow more in their faith and also in sharing of their faith. And according to James Pulraj, who is an advocate, of course, of the cyber church is not a destructive part of the real church. Rather, it supports the real church. Okay? So it should not be seen as something that destroys the real church. So in his own estimation, it actually does a great service to the real church by revealing itself to the world, because there are a lot of people that we can reach out to using the internet. Our relatives, our friends, people we don't know personally, they have access to what we post on the World Wide Web. And so that message will be made available. And that's one way of reaching out to them. So it is spreading the good news wider. Okay, so by entering the realm of the digital world, it becomes international or universal. In a way, it reconstructs the real church, albeit in the most unconventional ways. Okay, so it is a testament to what we call Catholicity of the church or the universality of the church, because we can be international. Okay, whatever is happening here in the Philippines, whatever I'm saying here in my room will be broadcast to the wider audience because of the internet. And that is really the power of the World Wide Web. And it's making something local as universal. Okay. And so we cannot deny what is positive in the use of internet. So, and also it provides broader spaces for participation. Of course, some people say that the decrease of church attendance in the contemporary world may be attributed to several factors. And one of them, perhaps, is a burgeoning of the cyber churches. But nevertheless, their existence can only be seen as part of the transformative process geared towards providing more venues for practitioners of faith, especially those whose physical movements are restricted or those who are categorized as digital natives, to participate in church life given the technologies that we have nowadays. I think some of the members of our catechetical ministry in Christ the King Parish can be categorized or can be called as digital natives, okay? Because that's the world they live in, okay? We are digital migrants, okay? Because when we were born, okay, the internet was not yet in existence. But these people, they are digital natives because they're born into this world. And so they know this world. It is their world, okay? It is their universe, okay? And so if we are able to make good use of the internet, we will also be able to penetrate the world that they live in. So and that means that we can really reach out to them, and they can feel that they're still part of the church, okay? Using whatever language that they have, that they use, and also the metaphors or whatever icons that they use in order for them to grow in faith. So it is about trying to reach out most especially to those who are whose physical movements are restricted, and to those who are called as digital natives. So hence, it is not separate from the real church. In fact, it is an extension of the mission of the church, for it caters to those who have difficulty to physically access the activities of the church, especially those who are in faraway places. So through the cyber church, they are still able to participate actively, albeit virtually, in the liturgical or devotional services. Okay, whenever we have the live stream for our masses, you have a lot of petitions being written on the chat box. So it is them really participating actively in the celebration. They are present there, and they're also praying with the community. So that's one way also of broadening the spaces for participation in the church. So not only those who are physically present, but those who are also virtually present can really participate actively in the celebration. So it's also about sharing and interacting with fellow people, because they can chat, and some people can also respond in the chat room, or they can continue their conversation even outside the live stream, okay? Which actually happened. So it is about a new paradigm that we have to embrace. It is a new paradigm for collective worship that transcends caste, creed, color, and regions. Okay, because it's about being universal. It's about being international. So it reaches as many creed, as many colors, as many regions as possible. So it is a safe space also for religious freedom and dialogue, because of if you create chat rooms where people can express their opinions and also their questions without being judged, okay, then that is about being church. That is about evangelizing. That is about making them feel that they are heard, that they are part of the church, that the church cares about them. So it can be an avenue for free exchange of religious experience without the manipulation or dominance of the hierarchy, because anybody can start it. Okay, so it's people will be freer, okay, less restricted in expressing even their questions or their doubts, okay, without being judged. Okay, so it's a space for worship and gospel proclamation, not necessarily aimed at converting people, okay, but just sharing your faith, but rather to welcome and listen to one another in a spirit of synodality. So if we want to be synodal, then I think the power of the internet is also something that we need to take into consideration. Okay. So James Polraj actually said the cyber church is not a space only to proclaim God's word and doctrinal preaching, but also it provides a space for people to share their experience, how God has interacted with them. Okay, there are many platforms wherein where people can actually share about their religious experiences. So that is a day-to-day experience of common people. In the information age, people will listen to witness rather than dogmatic teaching. Okay, and I think you subscribe or you follow internet personalities because of their witness to their faith. So you are more interested in listening to people who share about their faith rather than those who are, being dogmatic in their teaching. So it gives the reality of human circumstances and their environment of God's intervention. that's not a supernatural or superpower projection, but God's power can be understood. So certainly you follow internet personalities who can relate to your experience and who speak in a language that you can really understand, or what we call accessible to you. And so we need more and more people like that to help us in our evangelization mission. So thus, it is participation in activities of the cyber church can be considered as an attempt to respond to the signs of the times that calls for a renewed community of humanity under the loving and inclusive God. So it's about widening the participation. Okay? So the internet is there, or the cyber church is there for us to provide more avenues so people can really participate in the life of the church. And it is responding to the signs of the times because of because we live in a globalized world, and also we have the a very powerful instrument or tool that we can use. In Korea, there is this very popular site called At Catholic Church, and it's about this Korean priest. Of course, it's the Jesuits. They in Korea, they assert that the Catholic Church should create a space for each generation because each generation has its own issues and agenda. So if the generation now is what we call the digital natives, so we have to create also, okay, a space for them, okay, so that they can really participate in the life of the church and not feel that they are totally what they call this disengaged, okay, in the life of the church. So only a cyber church can respond to this kind of cura generationis. So it's the so to care for this generation, we need to embrace also the power of what we call the cyber church or the World Wide Web. Okay, each generation can easily access a cyber church, and a cyber church can reach out to each generation promptly. So we have this very famous priest, Jesuit priest, Reverend Wang Chang-yun in Korea, who also made use of the power of the internet, especially during the pandemic. Okay, so he said, in a way, COVID-19 invites us to look beyond the horizon and to rethink the essence of religiosity. And I think here in our parish, Christ the King, we also went through that process. And so we looked beyond the horizon and really made use of the internet for the purpose of evangelization, for the purpose of mission. Okay, thanks to, of course, the SOCOM. Okay, we have Tessa here and and her team who really helped us navigate through the perils of the pandemic. Okay, and but being able to communicate the faith even amidst the pandemic. Okay, so online platforms that are the use of artificial intelligence, the church is also supporting that. Okay, so the VP of the communications of Fiveable, that's one of the platforms used, AI. He said AI can be turned to good or bad ends. It depends on how you use it, of course. As with any technology, there is the attempt to make an idol of convenience and to chase after the promise of working less, while failing to ask why or for whom we work at all. So it's very important that we are mindful of who are we working for. Okay, if we are working for Christ, then of course it's not about convenience, okay, that we're after, but we are using this powerful tool in order for us to intensify our mission. Okay, so if we allow our reliance on artificial intelligence to replace our desire for understanding, we will certainly be poorer. Thankfully, that's not our only option according to him. Okay, so we should not be slaves, of course, of the internet, of the artificial intelligence, but we use this not because of convenience, but because we want our reach to be wider and more comprehensive and more intensive. So these are the available apps or softwares or onlines that we can use for our purpose. For the Bible apps, you have the U versions, Bible Gateway, or the USCCB daily readings. As for catechetical resources, some of them are available online. So like the formed.org, the Catholic Brain, and Loyola Press. Okay, so these you can gather materials from these resources. For virtual learning platforms, you can use Moodle, Canvas, or Google Classroom. And for video conferencing tools, of course, we are using Zoom, but there are also alternative platforms like the Microsoft Teams or Google Meet. And for podcasting platforms, if you're into podcast, you can use Anchor or Podbean. And then for social media platforms, of course, we're very familiar with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And for the digital storytelling tools, you can also use Adobe Spark or Canva or Storybird. So it's like you can use this when you want to tell a story in a creative way using the internet or the digital platform, and et cetera, et cetera. So with this, I'd like to end my sharing for tonight, okay, which is about Catechism and the World Wide Web. So in simple words, I'm simply saying that we can use the internet, okay? We can use this very powerful tool in our evangelization mission because these are available platforms that we can use in order for us to really reach out to more people and to make that experience of Christ and his church really alive, even to people who are physically unable to come to church, or to the children or to the young people that we consider to be as digital natives. So there are many ways to evangelize. There are many ways to reach out to people. And one of them is the internet. Thank you very much.